Hey, welcome back, investor, to another episode of Passive Income Adventures. This is a show where we talk about how to go on an adventure in life and we help you figure out how to pay for it. And it's by passive income, like portfolio income. You are an investor. That's why I say, welcome back, investor. It's like figuring out where to put your money so that it can pay you so that you can live the lifestyle that you want. And the lifestyle, people hear that and they're thinking like jets and, private ski chalets and things like that. But we're just talking about like the freedom to be able to make choices about how long you work, where you work. Like, are you working for money? Are you volunteering? It's like making sure that your lifestyle is in line with your income with a little bit of a buffer so that you can put the extra away. And so today we're going to talk a lot about like lifestyle creep and such with our guest, Tyler Osborne, who is a financial counselor and wealth manager, helping people who just probably in your situation feel like, wait, I make way too much money to feel this kind of broke and paycheck to paycheck. And what am I doing wrong? And I know I probably need to lower my expenses, but I need to be investing better and just trying to figure it all out. Sometimes we weren't raised in a situation where we watched parents managing money at a high level. So this is kind of the show where we go beyond, say, the basics and get you to the next level because what got you here to be an accredited investor, with a good net worth, high income is not going to get you there, which is being able to leave your job when and if you decide that that's a thing. So welcome with me today, Tyler Osborne, where we're going to talk about all these kind of issues about how to get where you want to be going. Welcome on, Tyler.
Hey, thank you so much. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, give us a little bit about your background, kind of what got you into this, and describe to me. I usually save this for the end of the show, where I'm like, describe to me the kind of person who should reach out after the show. But just, I want you to actually start with like the kind of person you're talking to, because finances, everybody has to deal with it. Everybody is somewhere on the financial spectrum, whether it's like my teenager who's learning how to put money in their first, from their job away, or my little kids when they were just putting pennies into a piggy bank, all the way up to 100 millionaire, or even some of us know a few billionaires. This is a broad spectrum that touches everybody's life. So where do you come in on that spectrum? Like describe your ideal person that you work with, and then your background and kind of how you got there.
For sure. I think when it comes to finances, there are different types of people. There are people that help when it comes to helping a person build their wealth. And that's typically going to be like your financial advisor that you're going to meet at maybe at Morgan Stanley or Fidelity or Charles Schwab or something like that. And then there's someone like myself that helps you preserve your wealth, meaning that helps you carry it on from where you are now to the next generation. And that's really a lot of times what we focus on at my firm is making sure people can, for one, retire, but not just retire comfortably, making sure that money can pass on and create a legacy as well. So that's really where we kind of fall in on top of that. But we teach courses on finances, and
Mhm.
I have a free course on finance, I should say. I don't teach course on. I already did it. It's like you just got to go
Yeah.
to the website and get into it yourself. That's where we're at because I find out with a lot of people, just like their health, everyone's financial situation is different. So everyone's on a different set of the spectrum when it comes to their finances, whether you're, just getting started and trying to figure things out, or you've already been making great money for a long time, but you don't know where everything's going. So you don't know how to budget and things like that too. So what we want to do is help make sure that a person is preserving their wealth and they make it carry on to the next generation as well by helping them with different strategies and things like that.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I noticed when we first got into like the high net worth category, I don't remember the first person who described me as high net worth, but my initial reaction was to like reject it. Like, no, we're not high net worth, right? We weren't even $1 million at that point. And I realized at that point, I was like, okay, we need to start thinking about money differently than we have before. And I think the thing that kind of caught me is I've always wanted enough money that I didn't have to think about money. And I realized the more money I got, the more organized I needed to be with it. Because if I wanted to keep it around so I didn't have to think about it, then I needed to think about it. And that irony there, it's like I don't want to think about how I'm going to spend money within like a certain sloppy tolerance range. If I want to buy something or I want to do something, I want to be able to go do it. But at the same time, if you don't pay attention to the management on the back end, you don't know what that range is, and you don't want to look at it. So it's like to not think about money, you have to think about money. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of us want to come to a point in time in which money is only an option. It gives you options to things that you want to do, but you don't want to focus on the day to day exactly where it's going. But what I've learned over time, if you want to attract it, you need to track it. Attract it, you need to
Yeah.
track it. So a lot of things you got to do is we have to track where our expenses are going and things like that to make sure that it does go to the right places. So we're not overspending or don't know where every dollar is going. and it can be tedious, but it actually works. And I'll give you an example. So I'm on a weight loss journey right now. And my whole weight loss journey is to go from which I was in the beginning of February, I was at 251 pounds. I'm only 6 foot, way overweight, right? I call myself a fat boy, but if you see me, I don't look fat, okay? At all. There's a lot of muscle and all this fat. Anyways, so I was like, you know what? I played college sports I've been playing sports and played college sports my whole life. And I was like, let me just go back to what I know. And when it came to getting better in football, we used to go ahead and track things. You track things like how fast you're running, how strong you're getting. It might be your bench press, how much you squat, or it might go ahead and be how much you can power clean. And we track all that, and we're taking progressional steps to get to where our goals are going to be. So like, I need to start doing that for my weight again. So I had to start tracking everything that I consume, because when it comes to weight loss, it's not necessarily about me going to the gym or me working out, because you don't lose weight at the gym, you lose weight in the kitchen. So now, so say what now?
Oh, you lose weight out of the kitchen.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I started tracking down every single meal, everything I'm putting inside my body, counting all my calories. And since February 1st, and today is what is today's date? March 24th? Is that right?
Yeah, yeah,
I've lost 13 pounds.
yeah.
I lost
Fun.
13 pounds. Absolutely. So in about 7.5 weeks, I've lost basically, almost two pounds a week, about 1.8 pounds a week to be exact. So that's how much, I'm tracking, because I could put exactly to the pound and an ounce is how much I'm losing. So, but you have to
Yeah.
track it. So same thing when it comes to expenses and your money and things like that.
Yeah, I agree, but it's like at a certain point, like let's go with the sports or the physical fitness analogy because you're an athlete. Um, I at a certain point, even with my food, like my calories and all that, I don't want to track it all the time. So I kind of do these periodic things like just to keep myself on track. If I notice I'm starting to gain weight or I'm like, wow, I gained some weight, I need to lose some weight. I have fitness goals and things I track. It's not always like calories. Sometimes it's like, how far I can run or whatever it is that I want to be tracking, but it's not all the time. And I think it's the same with money. People feel a little bit overwhelmed, especially when like every dollar has to have a name or that zero budget that you have to do. And it is so tedious, but I feel like I I mean, wealthy people are organized. Let's just get that out of the way right now. Wealthy people are organized. If you are wealthy and you're not organized, then you're going to struggle. So get organized. But at the same time, you don't have to track every cent. You don't have to have a budget down to the cent. Yet I kind of do. It's a really strange place to be. So let's just talk a little bit about budgeting for wealthy people and what that looks like. That might be different than what they did as people who were a little earlier in the journey. Because I don't want to budget every dollar, and I don't want to live my life that way and tracking to that level. But every once in a while, I feel like I need to just check in and see
Hmm.
what's going on. So relate that back to money for me.
For sure. Now I'm trying to think of a way in which, and I get what you're saying. It is super tedious. It is super tedious to track every single dollar of your expenses, especially when, if you're a wealthy person, you're not worried about a few $100. That's not really a big deal to you or anything like that. But it's just an overtime in the long term of where you want to be. And this is just for me. I can't speak for every single person listening to this podcast, and I can't say what my method is the only method that works. I just like to track everything just because I just want to be in quote unquote control. I don't want
Mhm.
money controlling me in my future. I want to be controlling money. And what I mean by that is this is whenever I work, I want to work because I want to, not because I have to. And I find out a lot of times when I'm not tracking or I don't have things in order, I don't see things going exactly where they're supposed to be. I feel disorganized, and now I'm feeling like I'm no longer in control. And if you're wealthy listening to this call, you probably like control. Because well, a lot of times wealthy people like control. You want to be in control of things. So for me, just making sure that when I'm budgeting, I'm know where dollars are going. And what I've done is this: I've allocated certain amounts for different things. So if I know that, hey, we want to go on a trip, I'm saving up towards this trip. I know that money's going when it's time to go ahead and use that. If I want to go ahead and saving up towards my next investment, I'm doing things towards that. So I'm just me personally, and a lot of times that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm making sure that I'm tracking in that instance. But sometimes, people use different strategies and how they like to go ahead and budget. I've heard of you probably heard of the 70-10-20 rule, in which people live off 70% of their income when it comes to their living expenses. 10% can go towards, any type of investments, and 20% can go towards whatever type of As far as fund or long-term investment where you can flip it, you can go ahead and do 10% towards fund and, 20% towards some type of investments that you want to go ahead and do. So that could be a simpler way for a lot of people if they want to look at it that way, 70, 10, 20, and do it that way.
Yeah. I've definitely found a lot of freedom in using that kind of like bucket strategy, both with investing and with budgeting. It's like investing, your bucket's going to change size depending on what your goals are. And so like I think it was back in the 80s, I can't remember the name of the guy, but he came up with the bucket strategy where it's like you want a certain percentage in growth, a certain percentage in wealth preservation, and a certain percentage in cash flow. And depending on where you are in your life, those buckets are going to grow or shrink in relation to one another. So the whole thing should be 100%. With the budget, I think that's the same thing. It's like almost like the Dave Ramsey envelope method, where I set up certain accounts that are specialized in certain things, and I use as long as I'm kind of keeping an eye on that and making sure there's money in there. But we use those automated tools, and we've all been doing like auto bill pay for a while. But recently, my husband's an IT guy in tech, right? And so we recently discovered like we're entrepreneurs, we pay for Google Workspace, and that comes with a Gemini Pro, which we
Yep.
didn't know we had. And so I like the last couple of months, I've been just totally geeking out on Gemini Pro. So we set up a notebook LM, and this gives us privacy from anybody reading our chats, from humans ever being in there. It doesn't train their models. And so we still need to be concerned about cybersecurity, right? But other than that, we have good enterprise level privacy in there. So we just started uploading our financials, like our we have to redact for cybersecurity, like tax returns and things like that. But we have been able to put in our tax returns, our family trust documents, like everything in there, just load it up into Google Notebook LM. And then we can go into Gemini Pro, link that notebook, and start asking it questions about what are you seeing? Like, where are the holes? Like, how are we doing this? And we have a spreadsheet budget that's more of a bucket style, like you're talking about, where we just want to make sure each thing is kind of well padded. So we're not tracking it down to the dollar, but at the same time, the more organized we get, the more in control we feel and the more confidence we get to actually go out and continue to build wealth because we're not so scared about where we're going. So this bucket stuff, automating, using tools, I mean, these are all things that if you can kind of figure it out in your daily life budget, it all translates over into investment management as well, where you're really starting to build great wealth and really good cash flow that somebody else is working for. That's
And,
investing in
and
somebody else's stuff.
and I love that you and your spouse have went ahead and done things like that. What I find out is a lot of people don't even know what their budget is. They don't know. They know how much they make, but they don't know how much it goes out. And that's kind of where the huge problem lies a lot of times. Most people don't have a set number of what they need that of what they know goes out every single month. They just know exactly what they bring in. And
Mhm.
because they don't know, they're not using some of the tools that you mentioned. And since there is AI around, there are so many different ways that you can go ahead and utilize that to help you and your family. But so many people that I've come across, they don't know. Like
Mhm.
we have to sit there and break it down, or they need to go ahead and go into a sheet and list everything down. Because and typically what I find is this: it's just because most people grew up without a financial education. You go
Yeah.
to elementary school, graduate from high school, graduate from college, learn nothing about finances, and as soon as you get out of school, life is about money. And unfortunately, a lot of people who have done very well in their profession, they've made a lot of money, but that doesn't mean they know how to keep it. And that's kind of where we come into place and teach people these type of things.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a family where my mom and dad were extremely intelligent, like intimidatingly intelligent. And I remember as a teenager being very frustrated that they couldn't take those big brains and turn it towards financial matters because I thought we would have so much more time to spend together. We'd be able to afford the hobbies that because they so smart, they had a zillion hobbies, right? And just capable type of people. But of all the things they were interested in and spent time looking at, money and finance and wealth building was not one of them. And so I took a lot of business classes in school. Like I was in junior achievement. I think I took some sort of like business math or so. I don't remember what it was. The classes that other kids would make fun of because only dumb kids went to like business math. Smart kids did calculus and dumb kids did business calculus or whatever the thing was. And I was like, I don't care because they're talking about money and how this is going to relate back to business. Like, sign me up. I felt like I didn't have the financial education at home. The school was offering it, but there was a little bit of a stigma against signing up for some of these business classes that I had to just be like, you know what? I don't care because I'm going to make more money than all of you. Business calculus is more useful. So that to me became kind of a thing. And I think a lot of families raised in that situation where money was not talked about. It was something that was like kind of low class to talk about money, which just that I've never really gotten with that. I really prefer being more open about it and learning from one another, because if you're not getting it at school and you're not getting it at home, then we need to get it from our network. So that being said, I'll get off my little soapbox there. I think at the beginning, I want to back up a little bit because I forgot, like I asked, but we didn't follow up on like your background journey to this, like your credentials and how you got from being, a college athlete to now being in this world of wealth creation and management.
For sure. Let me backtrack so because
Yeah.
it'll all wrap up and then making sense. So honestly, I grew up in the east side of San Jose, California, and honestly, sports saved my life. The reason I just say that is because majority of my friends growing up are now either no longer living in prison or struggling on drugs. So just kind of thank God I got away from them. I got a football scholarship at the University of St. Mary's in Kansas. In 2010, I was in what's called the Small School NFL Combine. It's basically for small school kids, in which
Mhm.
they have for you to go to the NFL. So I was at that. Didn't end up getting drafted or put into the NFL or anything like that. So I had to figure out what to do next. When I was in school, I got my degree in psychology. I wanted to be a marriage counselor. And then I got married to my wife and decided no longer wanted to be a marriage counselor. It's kind of that happened there. Still married. Actually have 4 children. I have an 18-year-old son. I have a 15-year-old daughter. I have a 14-year-old son and a 12-year-old daughter. Boy, girl is how they were born, which is pretty cool. But I had to figure out what to do next. And I found the number one reason that people were splitting up was because of finances. And I was like, okay, I should probably work in that industry. Didn't really know exactly how to get into it. And I'm a man of faith. That's just me and my life. And I just remember one day I was up at night praying, and the Lord just kind of told me, "Hey, apply for J.P. Morgan." I said, "Apply for J.P. Morgan." All right, cool. So I got up the next day and applied for J.P. Morgan. I was sitting there doing like a math test, and I was getting frustrated because I was like, "Why am I doing an algebra test for a bank?" And I didn't understand it. And my sister-in-law at that time, she worked for a credit union, and she was a banker. I was like, "Did they have you do like an algebra test?" She was like, "No." And I got so frustrated, I was just like, I don't want to do this no more. And I took my wife out to a movie. Movie must not have been good because I cannot remember the movie or what I watched at all. Ended up coming back home, and now it's like 11:30 at night, and the Lord just kind of spoke to me again. I was like, go finish that application." So I got up at about close to 11:45, 12 o'clock at night, and finished that application. And I got a call on that following Tuesday. So it was a Friday. I got a call that Tuesday from a lady named Jeannie Cox. I'll never forget her. And Jeannie calls me. She's like, "Hey Tyler, how's it going? This is Jeannie Cox calling from J.P. Morgan, and loved your application. Love to set you up for an interview." I looked at the phone like I just applied like a few days ago. And so anyways, so she's like, "Yep, we're gonna have you go ahead and interview in Mountain View, California. Why don't you go ahead and go to that branch and kind of go from there?" It's like, all right, cool. So ended up driving off to that branch. I want to say it was that Thursday. So 2 days later, after I got that call, I drove up to the interview for JP Morgan out in Mountain View, California. And I killed the interview with the branch manager. Did extremely well. He liked me. He's like, "Yeah, I think I want to move forward with you. Sounds great." I was like, "Okay, but I need you to meet our general manager first." I said, "All right, awesome, not a problem." So the guy ended up coming in about an hour and a half later. We ended up meeting. I'm sitting down with this gentleman for the position, and he's interviewing me. And this guy, he was so rude and so mean to me. Oh my goodness. It was a horrible experience. And all he kept saying to me was, "How come over the last year you haven't been working?" And I was like, "Well, for the last year I've been training for the NFL. That's been my go-to only thing I was, eat, breathe, sleep football because I'm trying to complete a lifetime childhood goal of mine." And he just couldn't get over the fact of that I hadn't worked during that time period. And afterwards, I left, and I just feel like, man, I'm not getting that job
Yeah.
at all because he didn't like me at all. And ended up leaving. And probably about a week and a half later, I got a call from Jeannie again. And Jeannie goes, "Hey, Tyler, how's it going? How did that interview go?" I was like, "Yeah, he didn't like me. I don't think he liked me at all because I didn't, I never heard anything back. And all he kept harping on is about how I didn't, work over the last year, and how he mentioned something that to this day I still remember. He was like, "You must not be that ambitious if you don't
Oh,
have a." I was like,
yeah, because he had right?
some like I wanted to punch him in the face, but obviously I didn't. Anyways, so I talked to her about that. She's like, "You know what? I'm gonna set you up on a whole different with a whole different branch outside that guy's jurisdiction. You don't have to worry about him. I want you to go on another interview." So I was like, "Okay, cool." So she set me up on another interview. It was called a hiring event for JP Morgan that they were having in Fremont, California. So she gave me a call probably like on a Monday. I want to say probably that following that like 2 days later on a Wednesday, I showed up to this interview. And I sit down with this gentleman. His name was Eric Powell, and I remember this still to this day. This is over 15 years ago. Uh,
You
so
know.
Say what now?
Well, eat pal. We got like the same name.
E Powell, exactly. Yeah, you do have the same last name actually. That's which is crazy.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting here with him, and I'm had this hiring interview, and for the next hour and a half, all he does is talk to me about football. He doesn't mention
Mm,
anything about finances, doesn't mention anything about my past jobs or anything like that. All he did is talk to me about football for an hour and a half. Want to understand the process, how it was playing college football, understand the mindset, the mental toughness you have to have, how you have to have goals and working as a team. And that's all we talked about for an hour and a half. And I left her like, I think I got this one.
yeah.
And ended up leaving or whatnot, and got a call probably about another 2 days later from a lady named Vicky. And Vicky had a branch. She was a manager over at a location out in Cupertino, California. And ended up going out there, meeting with Vicky, interview with her, and she gave me the job on the spot. And that's kind of how I got my footsteps into the financial industry. Now, once I got in with JP Morgan, I was like, okay, this is awesome. I'm working here at JP Morgan, helping clients, things like that. But what I just started kind of noticing is, for one, the clientele I could help. I can only help a person unless they had, a certain dollar amount, which at the time I didn't like, just because I wanted to help more people. And if you didn't have a certain dollar amount, I couldn't help you at all. And on top of that, all we did is just only sell JP Morgan products. And when you can only sell one company's product, that doesn't necessarily mean you're always doing exactly what's best for the client, if that makes sense,
Mhm.
right? Because
Oh yeah.
the only thing you do is just offer one product, one service, and that's it. So I didn't like that either. And then on top of that, I found out how much I was not getting paid. I had helped somebody do like a $500,000 rollover of like an old 401k slash IRA. And at that point in time, I was like 22 years old, and I had made 2 grand in about an hour. And at that point in time, I was fired up for the little $2,000 I made. And come to find out, I went home, did my research, and I found if I would have owned my own firm, that would have been closer to 30,000. I said, "What the heck? You guys shorted me $28,000, right?"
Mhm.
And I was like, "Yeah, nah, I got to figure out a way to get out of here." And actually, and eventually ended up meeting somebody that decided he'd mentor, train me, and coach me on what I could do to actually own my own firm. I just did everything the gentleman told me to do, and a year later, ended up owning my own firm, and that was over 13 years ago. So by the
Yeah.
time I was 24 years old, I actually started my own financial firm that early in life. And that's
Yeah.
how I got to where I'm at now. So that's my little background story.
It's kind of amazing to me how many guests I have on the podcast who started out in traditional finance and then ended up running their own thing. Because, like you said, I hate to say this, like I invested companies when they do a deal with like JP Morgan, I get very excited, right? Because JP Morgan is doing a lot of business and it's a lot of respected people. I respect the people there. I love when we have a company that can sell them a product that they use. But at the same time, I feel like the comment that you made about how everybody's fitness level is different, everybody's money level is different, it gets a little generic. I mean, as we get into wealth management, start talking about like our early stages of our family office, and we're looking at like private banking. I guess all the big banks have private banks as well. I'm like, what's private banking? Like, what do they do? And I found a lot of the same thing. It's just a little bit too generic, and they're only selling products from a limited basket of options. And too many wealthy people, in an attempt to not be organized, delegate that responsibility over to somebody else, thinking, "Oh, this person at J.P. Morgan or whatever private bank or public, whatever it is, a CFP, it doesn't matter. They want to delegate this out to somebody else, and they don't want to be the CEO of their own finances, and they're not interested in playing around with their own finances." And so, I feel like getting that recognition, like you're the CEO of your wealth. You cannot delegate this away. You can hire vendors the same way you would if you were running a company. But what entrepreneur would just be like, I don't want to do this. I got lawyers, I got accountants, I got marketing people. What's the leader of the company going to do when they're delegating that much out? A lot. So it's the same thing for your wealth and your family office. There's still a lot of coordination, thinking, research, planning, strategy, and you have to stay informed. So run your wealth management the same way that you would run your business. There's just no excuse for not doing it. And I feel like if that's one message we can get across, it's like the tools you use and the actionable strategies and all that can vary depending on where you are and what you like and your personality. But at no point can you not run your family wealth like you would run your own business. So I don't know,
I,
share with me your thoughts on that and how you help your clients kind of get over that hump.
I 1,000% agree with you. You should definitely run your wealth and your family exactly how you run your business if you're an entrepreneur. And that's that mindset that you should transfer over. So obviously you might not have all the knowledge and skills to know every single thing when it comes to wealth and management, things like that. Uh, but you can be the head coach of it, and you can delegate who you need to in order to make sure that they're getting the jobs in. And what I mean by that, so and when you're playing sports or you're playing a sport like football, you have a head coach. The head coach oversees the whole team, but he's not the guy who's coaching the quarterbacks. He's not the guy who's coaching the offensive lineman. He's not the guy coaching the defensive lineman, so on and so forth. It's the same thing when it comes to your finances. So you could be the head coach and oversee everything, but you should still be in contact, especially if we're talking about a family office. You should be the one that's understanding. You're talking to your wealth management person, you're talking to your person that's over your risk mitigation, you're talking to the lawyers, you're talking to your CPAs, you're talking to your business infrastructure people. You have all these people in place. You should be having a meeting with these people, making sure that your wealth is going in the right direction and not the wrong direction. So 1,000%, all the mindset that it took a person to become where they're at, it's the same mindset when it comes to growing your wealth as well. Not just, so a lot of times when people think make money, they're thinking income. Well, once you get to a certain point, it's no longer income, and now it's net worth.
Mhm.
And you should be focused on your net worth growing and being the quarterback and the head coach of your net worth growing, and making sure that you're definitely operating the system in which you may not understand everything, but you understand where everything's going
Mhm.
for a certain
Yeah.
for a fact. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's kind of the back of the bucket thing we were talking about. Your net worth is like that 100%. And then how much of the bucket are you putting your net worth into things that cash flow? Or are you putting into things that preserve wealth, that grow wealth? I'm going to back up one, like zoom out just a little bit more, because I like to think I'm an athlete. I'm not an athlete. Um,
Nothing
but
wrong with
I
that.
I did sports marketing. And so we're going to zoom
Okay.
out one more. You got like the general manager. So this, if we're going to look at this from a head coach standpoint, they're playing the sport, right? But in the real world, you got to zoom out one more level, because the general manager is also running the business of the sports team. And so inside there, you mentioned quarterbacks and offensive linemen, like really tactical specialists in exactly what they're doing. They're going to have a forwards coach and a backs coach, and they're going to have a head coach, and they're all going to be doing these strategies. But then zoom out a little bit more, and you have a whole business wrapped around all of this. Like, I was a marketer, and that it was paying for my family to go do things. And so there's a business around your wealth, just like the investments are more like the team. The investments are more like the quarterback and the coaches. But the business itself, you're the GM. Like, you gotta run that thing and let the athletes do their job. And because you hired some really good athletes, and those are your investments, the coaches are your vendors. And then the business around that is it's its own thing. And even if you're listening and you're not an entrepreneur, you work for a company, right? You know what corporate rigor looks like. And then you come home to all this disorganization, and you're using communication strategies. Let's go back to the marriage therapy thing, communication strategies with your business partner. Because sometimes you're married and other times you're business partners, and you speak to your business partner in a way that is completely unacceptable. Like, you cannot go into work like that. And she's like, I don't know, like, what's going on. And that's just, you would get fired if you were that person in your office. And so just take a step back. People are like, oh, how can you work with your husband? I could never work with my husband. Like, well, then you can't work with anybody if you can't work with your partner, because I treat my husband in those business interactions like a business partner. We speak with respect. We speak professionally. We treat each other in a way that we would do with the same kind of corporate rigor. So you know what corporate rigor looks like. You know what corporate communication needs to look like. You know what works. You know what doesn't work. Just bring all that home. Bring it all home and apply it to what you're doing in your life. Do you see that the marriage itself um, often being a big obstacle to people organizing their money in a way? Or for me, it's a benefit, but I see sometimes it could be an impediment.
Absolutely. Because almost in every relationship, there's a spender and there's a saver. Like
Well, but it's a spectrum. Like, my husband and I, neither one of us are spenders.
that's good.
It's
That's
just when you
amazing.
look at it on a spectrum, like, I'm really frugal. Like, I am off the charts, off the bottom of the chart frugal. Like, I don't want to spend money on anything ever. And so it makes him look like an impulse spender. It makes him look like a big spender, even though he is absolutely not. In most marriages, he would be the saver. But because I'm so extreme there, it makes him look like something is not. And so the spender and the saver is like just kind of relative to one another. And you got to think to yourself, like, if you're both on the saver side of average, like my husband and I are, great. But if you're both on the spender side of average, oh boy.
It's hard. It's definitely hard. It's funny because me and my wife work together as well, which is pretty cool that you said you and your spouse do too. And I always find it like there's, yes, we are, husband and wife, but then we are also business partners, and you have to separate the two. When it's time to get to work, we got to separate what we're going through in the relationship compared to what we're doing at work. But also, a lot of times when I come across married couples and we're dealing with their finances, a lot of times what I find out is that the men want to know about the rate of return and the women want to know about the security.
Oh, yes, that's true. That's true.
Like, well, how much is it going to make me? And the women worry about, is this, how safe and secure we're going to be? And knowing that mindset going in, I just know how to speak to each individual about what feeds them when it comes to their finances, and understanding that. But a lot of times they have to come into agreement, because if you're not on the same page when it comes to your finances in a marriage, it's going to be very difficult for you guys to grow as a family in that area.
Mhm.
So many times I see couples who are not on the same page when it comes to their finances, and some of them don't even share bank accounts. They just, oh, this is what's due, make sure you have your money here for this when this needs to get paid, and this and that. And that makes it a little bit difficult, because now when we come to the table and we're talking about, putting together an investment for you guys in your future, and you don't know how much he makes and he doesn't know how much you make, and you just come together. It just makes it more of a harder conversation. So a lot of times they need to communicate a lot more when it comes to the finances in order to get the house in order. And
Mhm.
typically what I find out the reason is because so many people grow up with the stigma of not talking about money or not talking about finances. And it's usually the three things that no one wants to talk about, or they say the what's the word I'm looking for? The taboo of things to talk about are religion, money, and
Politics.
politics.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. So a lot of times, so that it's a hard conversation for them to have without going into an argument over money. So a lot of times I have to do is help them break down some of those mindsets and those walls around money. And even in my course, I had part of the course I talk about your money mindset, and making sure you understand your money, and understanding the mindsets that you've built around money that you've probably developed from a child. And we
Yeah.
want to make sure that we break that down. And because, there's so many different stigmas that people have when it comes to how they think and money, that we have to help people get over as well.
Okay. Well, I mean, I had this experience when after I graduated high school, I became a live-in nanny for a very high achieving couple. And I moved from my little town outside of Seattle up near Seattle proper. And they were both physicians and they lived in the fancy part of town, right? And so many of our neighbors were Jewish. And growing up on the West Coast, I literally did not know any Jewish person ever growing up. I would see it on TV and I felt like where are they meeting all these Jewish friends? Like I don't have any Jewish friends. And so when I got up there and a lot of our neighbors were Jewish and the kids I was in were even attended like classes at the Jewish Community Center. And I talking with the parents and all of that, they're talking about money in a way I'd never heard discussed before. And that's when I realized like this is very cultural. And there are ways that families and societies and certainly married couples can learn how to talk about money in ways where they're not getting in an argument and this can be overcome. They're just humans like the rest of us, but it's just and you don't even have to be brought up this way. It's a skill that you can learn. I learned it from my neighbors and being exposed to an openness about talking about money and managing money. And the family I lived with was not Jewish, but it was fascinating to see how open even they were talking about money and reading books. And we would sit down and go over like what are we eating this week? What's our budget for eating out? What are we groceries for? Like all of that. And I just thought that wow, this family is just so much more organized with everything, not just money, than anything I ever saw growing up. Not that my parents were disorganized, right? It's just that just the priorities were a lot different. And so that experience really taught me changed my life, honestly, like really, really changed the trajectory of my life. Just hanging out with people who had these interpersonal skills and organizational skills. And so, hanging out with people who are doing it differently than you are is oftentimes some of the best education. And so that can be you in somebody's life.
I 1,000% agree. And associations are everything, especially when it comes to wanting to level up in life. But a book that helped me the most understand like how people think was a book called, and you've probably read it before, Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Oh, yeah.
And that book just changed my thinking when it came to my, because I could relate. Like, yeah, I've grown around people who think some of these same ways that this guy's father was thinking compared to what his rich dad was thinking, and it just made me think of how your how and where you grow up kind of dictate your thought process in the early stages of your life. Until you move out of that and you start seeing how other people think and learning it, Like, oh shoot, there's a whole different uh in the movie Aladdin, there's a song called A Whole New World, right? And Aladdin gets introduced to a whole new world because now he's a, he's a prince supposedly. And now he's introduced to a princess, but the movie anyways. But that's for a lot of people. When you get introduced to a whole new world of
Mhm.
finances and a whole different way of thinking, it can really level you up. And that book helped me level up. One that association through the book of Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. But definitely a lot of people don't know, and they don't talk about it. It's just kind of a stigma growing up. But being associated, being around the right people can definitely help.
Yeah, I feel like, my parents, like, intelligent, high level, white collar workers. We never talked about this stuff. So I feel like we talked about it more than a lot of families did, actually. Like, I grew up thinking like that we were sort of talking about this, but then I got, wow, there's a long way to go here. But I always want to leave people some actionable insights. And so money is just a tool, honestly. Like,
Yes.
we use money to get the lifestyle that we want, like to get the time that we need. Do we want to volunteer, spend more time with our family? Like, do we want to work in a business that we feel like is really making an impact? It doesn't matter what lifestyle you want. Like, money is one of the tools that can get you there. Communication is probably the other one that I would rank up there right at the top. So before we go, I want you to give some actionable tools for people to manage the tool of their money. What do you find to be the most impactful when somebody's coming in and they're like, we are like so on the verge, but we just feel like we're kind of missing how to really do this in a professional way? Where do you usually see them needing to start with specific tools that our listeners should be able to go look into?
So things that they can go look into as far as what to get their budget in order. We talk about investing for their future. We talk about getting their retirement order. What exactly
I
you
mean,
trying to
good
say?
question. I mean, I think a good spreadsheet could fit all of
Fit
those
all
things.
that, right?
At the same time, it's like, what kind of tools do you see? Like, just give me one for each of those. Budget in order, getting started in investing, and then what was the last one you said?
Getting their retirement in order,
Yeah.
and then also, so and I'm not. How do I say this into which I'm not trying to like I'm really just trying to give information without trying to like sell anybody. I have a whole free course that can get you all these tools that a person needs to get
Yeah.
their things in order, if that makes sense. So I don't know of like a website other than just going to you can go to my course. You have access to a place where you have a full spreadsheet to go ahead and teach you how to budget properly. And then you can go to there. And then on top of that, you have, access to creating a different mindset around money, then talking about how to properly save for your kids when it goes to college, and understanding what, especially with college too, what most people don't even understand is how to fill out the FAFSA form. Like so many people don't understand this, is that there's a statistic that came out, and it's that over 80% of people who fill out the FAFSA form do it incorrectly.
Yeah. I
And
bet on
then
them actually. Like, I make my kids fill out their own FAFSAs. It's
so
like,
and it's crazy, being in the financial world, I learned that so many financial advisors don't even know how to do that either. They don't know
mm,
how to fill out the fast form for people. So we have a cheat sheet for families to go ahead and utilize for the FAFSA form, an understanding, because on the FAFSA form, there's so many things that it talks about, because the whole point of it is to pay the least amount for college. That's what you want to do.
mhm.
And FAFSA is just an opportunity for people to go ahead and get more money from the schools, because if the school really wants you, they can go ahead and get you in and offer you more money, and you can get award letters and things like that. So we teach you how to do that. And then talking about when it comes to which type of retirement you should have or what you should be utilizing. Most people go the traditional route. They go with the 401k/IRA, which is cool, and it's that's it's the number one option out there for people, because that's what's available through jobs. But that doesn't always mean it's the best option. So a lot of people need a little bit more education upon that. So we do talk about it in the course as well, because when it came to retirement, there's the three-legged stool. You had your 401k, which is your personal retirement. Then you had pensions. Then you had Social Security. Right now, Social Security is more like so security, is what I like to say. I don't know if my generation is gonna have it or not, but anyways, that's what some
Well,
people,
I had 6 kids so that you can have Social Security. It's gonna be fine.
Okay. Absolutely. And then, we talk about as far as how to set up trust, or what type of trust you might need for your family to make sure that you do, leave a legacy, and also obviously life insurance too. But I think a well-rounded course for some people that they can take, and it's complimentary. It doesn't cost you anything. There's
Mhm.
nothing for you to buy, but it'll just give you a broad overview on every single aspect of that. I think that's a place where people can start. But if you don't want to start with me, there's so many different, right now, what AI can give you information. It doesn't just give you application.
Mhm.
So obviously a person can go on and, go on if they don't want to hear my voice. They can definitely go on AI to go to an AI and figure out their finances as well. But
Yes.
eventually you might need a person to help you implement some of these things. So
Yes.
you do need implementation for sure. So
And you
those are
gotta
some
know when
points.
AI is lying to you, and you're only gonna know if AI is lying to you if you frequently use AI, because otherwise you're not
This is true.
gonna see. Okay, so I remember the first time I went to a rugby game, and I had not seen a rugby game in years, right? I was like 40 something, and I'm like, you know what? I used to really like rugby. I'm gonna get back into that. So we started going down to the matches at our local university, and I remember sitting there in the stands, and somebody behind me was basically calling the game, and I remember thinking like,
Hmm.
I have no idea what's going on. Like, I used to play rugby. I have no idea what's going on. And so finally I turned and introduced myself to him, and he said, "Yeah, I'm actually like a ref for like the youth or the high school league around here." And I was like, "Yeah, catch me up, man. I'm so lost." And it wasn't until he re-taught me how to watch the game that I was picking up like, "Oh, come on, ref." Like, because I literally was just guys running around falling on the ground and I was so lost. But the AI is the same way. It's like if you don't
Yes.
use it, you're not really going to see the detail and the nuance of how it's lying to you. And now I'd be like, "Yeah, what is that?" Right? Like, come on. You're 100% right to call me out on that. Like, you need to be able to recognize that. And the only way you're going to be able to do it is to learn how to use it. You
Yeah.
become a power user and you will see what it's lying to you, right? It's the beginners that are dangerous. So get good at it. Okay, so how do people get a hold of you so that they can sign up for your free course or have a conversation with you if they think that you have something that you could help them with?
Absolutely. They can actually go to my website, moneymasternation.com. There you can actually get access to the free course on the website. From there, you can go ahead and also schedule time if you want to meet with me individually one-on-one. I do have complimentary consultations with people. More than likely, you will meet with me, but I do have a large team. So sometimes if I can't meet, I might come in and introduce myself, then have you meet with a teammate of mine. But for the most part, then you're in our ecosystem now. We can help you in any kind of way you want to from there.
Yeah, I love teams because you can have specialists. It's like special teams in football. It's like you've got, the head coach, but you also need people who specialize in certain things. And so I do like a firm that is large enough that they can have specialists, but small enough that they still know who I am, right? So
Correct.
that's my preference. But if you want to get a hold of me, I also please welcome the invitation, investwithemma.com, and go straight to my calendar. And I talk about something that a lot of financial professionals don't really talk about, which is how to invest in private markets. So private equity, real estate, things that you want to add to your three-legged stool, because I feel like you have to have those things in place. I invest in the stock market. I have all these things in place. Well, I really said, okay, I want to get very involved. And if you want to be in private markets, you better be organized. Like this private markets will eat you up and spit you out if you do not go in, because the minimums are much higher and the returns can be also much greater. But it's a great way to diversify, but it takes a lot more knowledge and learning and organization. And so, if you want to figure out how to invest in those assets, like I mentioned, self-directed IRAs, things like that, like I would love to have a conversation with anybody out there, because I feel like these, again, what got you here won't get you there. And these are the tools that I noticed the very wealthy using. And I was like, I need to figure this out. And it definitely changed my life and the trajectory of my life. So if you want to talk with either me, investwithemma.com, or with Tyler at moneymasternation.com, we invite you. That's why we do these podcasts, is to talk to you afterwards. So thank you for coming on, Tyler.
I appreciate you so much. Thanks so much, Emma.
All right. And I will see all of you next week when we go on our next passive income adventure together.